I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know there may still be people streaming up from downstairs as the escalators are full. How many of you are at the Hilton this morning? How many of you are feeling the same? Oh, not nearly as many as I would have guessed. There was no power at the Hilton this morning, which also meant no water. Which meant, I don't know about you, but when I woke up this morning,
does it?
no, I realized when I woke up this morning and I had fallen asleep with the light on, which is not unusual as I'm reading. And usually somewhere in the middle of the night in a half awake state I will turn it off. And I woke up this morning and thought, I don't remember turning that off. And tried other multiple lights around the room. I thought, there was a very post-apocalyptic feel to my hotel room this morning, which was a very odd way to start the day. So if you were there with me, you will understand the sense sort of still feeling a little bit discombobulated even now, several hours later. You can tell we're in a primary session when you're at a tech conference and the room is 90% female, 95% female. You can tell we're talking about preschool, early primary grades. But you can also tell that there's a demand for talking about primary grades, and I feel this at tech conferences all the time, where there's a lot of stuff aimed at upper elementary and middle school and high school, and those of us in kindergarten and first and second grades feel a little bit lost. My name is Jennifer Orr. I currently teach kindergartners. This is my first year teaching kindergartners. I have spent the last 6 years teaching first graders. I don't know how many of you have taught first and K. The gap between first and K is bigger than I anticipated it would be. 7 years ago, I moved from 5th grade to first. I expected that to be a culture shock and a huge shift in my own thinking and learning. The shift from first to kindergarten was almost as big as the shift from 5th to first. So I'm learning a lot this year. I also changed schools and have access to a lot less in the way of technology than I had in my old building. So if you are in a position where you don't have access to a whole lot of technology, I am happy to chat with you about possibilities because it is something I am struggling with now that I was not used to struggling with. I do want to show you, you always wonder how much you need to be writing down. Everything I'm showing you today is here online with links and everything. It's jenorr.com. JENORR.com, and it's Meaningful Technology for Young Learners. It's just one of the pages there so that you don't have to worry about keeping up or thinking about links or any of that. It's all going to be there for you. All right, so how many of you are parents? My daughters are 11 and almost 8. They have grown up in a world with computers. They have grown up in a world for quite a few years now with iPads and iPhones, and kids are using them very, very young. You see it everywhere you go. And honestly, I think we see it happening even more than, I think it looks more prevalent than it is. I know that for me, the time that my children get to use my iPad is when they're stuck waiting for me somewhere. You know, when I have an appointment and I don't have a babysitter and they have to sit there and wait, that's the time I'm like, all right, this is your treat. You get the iPad while you sit here and wait for me. So in public places, they get to use it, and then at home they don't. So I'm sure it looks like they get more access to it than they do. But kids use it very, very, very young. And typically, young children are consuming on these devices. They're watching videos. They're taking things in. And I'm not against consumption. I do a lot of consuming on my iPad. I don't find it to be a hugely convenient device for me for producing things. But I'd like to see the consumption they're doing be a little bit healthier. I'd like to see them, if they're going to be consuming, at least we're being really thoughtful about what they're consuming. And then I'd really like to see them go beyond that. But at least, if our kids are going to be consuming, there are really great places out there for them to be consuming. And if you're not familiar with these, the links are all on the site. Storyline Online is a really fun place for books that are being read aloud to kids, where they can watch the book and listen and see the words. They're all read by actors and actresses at Storyline Online. So you'll recognize a lot of the voices here. And it is free. As is Toonbook Reader. I just discovered this one at NCTE this year. Graphic novels are all the rage. They're hugely popular. I enjoy them. My own daughters enjoy them. Toonbook Reader reads graphic novels aloud to you. And it highlights what's there. You have a lot more control over it than some sites. You have to tell it you want to turn the page. You can tell it to read it to you. Some of them are in different languages. I loved being able to share this with my families. 85% of the kids at my school speak Spanish. The kids' English may be pretty good. The families isn't. This is a great way for them to spend some time together. So the Spanish piece or French, Russian, or Chinese. Not every book is in every language, but it's nice to have that option. So Toon Book Reader is another good one. Unite for Literacy is another one I just learned about. For your really young readers, these are the kinds of books they're going to be reading soon. So it's kind of fun for them to get to listen to those too and to get to interact with them. A lot of times I think when my kids are on Storyline Online or some of these other sites, it's like me reading aloud to them, and that's great. But it's also kind of nice for them to see the kinds of books that I'm reading with them in a reading group, or that they're going to start reading soon, where they actually can pick out some of those words and follow along in a way that's different than they're going to do with the more complex texts. So Unite for Literacy is fun. Tumble Books is, so those first three were free. Tumble Books is a subscription site. My district subscribes to it. I'm lucky in that way. It has a ton of books on Tumble Books. Pebble Go is another subscription site. If you don't know Pebble Go, oh, check it out. I see a lot of people nodding. Yes, Pebble Go is nonfiction. It's fabulous. I had kids in first grade last year who that's what they would do when they would go home every day. And their parents are looking at them like, what are you doing? This on the computer, this? You know, prior to that they've been playing games. Now they're going home and they're looking at Pebble Go. There's biographies, there's social studies, there's science, there's all kinds of nonfiction stuff for the primary grades. Although I think that even my older daughter still likes Pebble Go.
Can I mention something that's really cool? You can get it free through the Library of Virginia site. Yeah. They got a grant that would enable Virginia schools and people in Virginia to be able to access it.
Fantastic. You go to the Library of Virginia site?
I mean, just Google Library of Virginia and Tumble Books, and it's the first thing that comes up.
Fantastic. If I can remember, I will add that to the link so that you can easily access it. That's fantastic.
It is.
And then there's videos on YouTube. There's a lot of junk on YouTube. But there's some really great stuff. My kindergartners really struggle with team numbers. Sit down, so I'm not right in the way. Those team numbers don't make any sense. They're really difficult to remember, 11, 12, 13, 14. They don't follow the pattern the way that 20s, 30s, 40s do. So sometimes when we're having our snack, I'll put up a team numbers video, just so that we're hearing those again and kind of getting them in our heads. Alphabet videos, this is a Dr. Jean song that somebody has put up. Again, during snack time, sometimes we'll consume some of these along with our food, because there is some benefit to it, but it's not what I want them to be doing all the time. If you don't know Illuminations math games, these are free. They're from NCTM. It's illuminations.nctm.org. The link is on my site. The Illumination games are fabulous. I want to sit and play the Illumination games. This one is a concentration game. You can play it where you can see the things behind the windows like this. You can play it where you can't see them, so that they have to remember them. With my kindergartners at the moment, we still play it where we can see them. It also has the words for the numbers, which they really can't read yet, so some of this is them just guessing randomly, but that works. There's 5-frame and 10-frame games. Octa's Rescue, if they have to count the octopuses and move them over to rescue them. They're pretty good games on the whole. So if they're going to be playing games, again, I'd like them to be playing something that I think is worth their time. I will also tell you that during the NCTM conference, and I can't even remember when that is now, it's been a while since I've been, they have these as apps and they're free. So if you keep your eye out on the NCTM Twitter feed, whenever the NCTM conference happens, and sometimes there's one other period in the year, where they throw out these apps for free. So if you happen to be a school that's using iPads, I grab them for my own personal iPad when they show up free, if nothing else, because I have children. All right, so one of the struggles that I face in a primary classroom that I think we should face more in upper grades and don't, is that there are a lot of tools available to my kids. Technology is just one of many, many tools that they could be using in our classroom at any given moment. And I say I don't think that happens as much in the upper grades because I don't think they have access to as many of these tools as I would like them to, even in 4th or 5th grade. But my kids use all kinds of things. They use blocks, they use crayons, they use scissors and glue, and dear goodness, we need to be doing that so that they get those fine motor skills. We've got gears and Legos and all kinds of things that they use for their learning on a daily basis, and that I want them to be using for their learning on a daily basis. So if suddenly I'm going to hand them a computer instead of this, I need to have a really good reason for it. Because this time is really important for them too. So I need to remember that technology is one of many tools they have access to, and that there are pluses and minuses to all of them, and that I need to be super thoughtful about why we're using whatever it is we're using at any given moment. So that said, there are tools I really like to put in their hands that I really like to use in my classroom. Cameras is one of them. I was trying to find a picture of me with a camera, because the first thing I want to talk about is me when I'm using a camera. And I realized that almost always the cameras are in my kids' hands. And so I use my iPad or my iPhone or whatever I happen to be having at the moment that will let me take a picture. I do, in my daily life in my classroom, wear a lab coat. I went the first couple weeks of this school year not doing it because I kind of felt like I was that teacher and I'm in a new school building and I thought people are going to think this is really strange. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, I realized I couldn't keep doing this. I need my lab coat. I wear my lab coat because it has pockets. Women's clothing does not have pockets. I don't know how many of you are frustrated by that, but it drives me nuts that I don't have pockets. I don't wear a watch, so I carry around my phone so that I know, if we're at recess, what time it is. I also use the timer on it a lot for me. I also carry around a camera, and I carry Post-it notes and pens, and I need my pockets. I've also found in first and kindergarten, it's kind of handy to have a lab coat that I can just take home on Friday and wash. And it saves the wear and tear on my clothes a little bit from all the little hands that love to come and talk to you. So I do carry a camera around with me all the time, because I never know when I want to take a picture of something in our classroom. Either just to take a picture of it, because I love what they're doing, or to document something specific with a child. Having a camera constantly is just really, really, sometimes in the hallway I whip it out to take a picture of something. So when I'm holding a camera, I have one app I'm going to talk about today. And I don't really talk about apps because I don't have iPads in my classroom. The only iPad I have in my classroom is my own iPad. And I tend to be a little bit stingy about it because if I break it, I'm not going to have a new one. My husband will look at me and go, "Why did you hand it to a kindergartner?" And that's a kind of a reasonable question. But I love Show Me. How many of you have used Show Me before? Show Me is fabulous. And we just made our one just last week. And let's see if it will work. We're not even going to have a lot of sound here, but we'll get the idea. Maybe. Depending on the internet. Let's try. It's trying. Show Me is an app that allows you to take pictures and record. So I can take pictures of things the students have created, and then they can explain it, and we can make a movie out of it. We're working on patterns in kindergarten right at this moment, and they were all making patterns with tiles or Unifix cubes or bears or whatever they had at their table. And I just went around and took pictures of their pattern. If they had made a pattern, some we're still working on, but if they had made a pattern, I took a picture of it and gave them the chance to tell us about their pattern. For most of them, that just meant they said blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow. Great. We posted on our class website. Their parents can hear their voice and see, and they can say, "That's my pattern." They can talk about it at home, which is a great thing, but the wireless is not going to let you see it. So never mind. So Show Me is really fabulous. We've used Show Me to teach other classes. So our fractions of groups, we'll make a Show Me about it, and then another first grade class could watch our Show Me. They could even make a Show Me back for us. It's a great way to kind of collaborate asynchronously, depending on your access to technology. If I don't have a way to just Skype with another class at any given time, a Show Me is a great way for us to share back and forth. And it's a free app. So most of the time, though, I'd rather that the kids are the ones holding the cameras. I've gotten cameras through Donors Choose. I've bought cameras myself. Every once in a while, there's a camera that my school will provide. I put them on lanyards. I take home lanyards from conferences, and I attach it to the camera, and so they wear it around their neck, so that I'm not so worried that the camera's just going to get dropped at random times. And if it's, I've taken some pictures and it's somebody else's turn, you take it off and you hand it to them and they put it around their neck. We take them on field trips with us. Last year in first grade, I had a photographer of the day. That was one of our class jobs. You could be line leader, you could be caboose, you could be chair stacker, you could be photographer. And if you were photographer in the morning, you went over to the hook and you grabbed the camera and you put it around your neck and you took pictures all day. It was the coolest thing I've ever done. The pictures they took, Now, I will grant you, for the first month, while everyone had their first turn at being a photographer, I got a lot of really kinds of pictures of their friends. Or even just random pictures of things on the walls because they're just excited to take pictures. But they're basically getting to be photographer of the month about once a month. I have about 20 kids. I teach them at Title I school. They took pictures during PE and music and art. They took pictures during lunch and recess, times when I don't typically remember to take pictures or I'm not there. They took pictures of me. Some of them are horrifyingly unflattering. I can't even describe to you. However, I will tell you that one of the pictures that they took of the music teacher, we had a new music teacher last year, and they realized when they were trying to put the yearbook together, they had no photograph of him. And I said, wait, I have photographs of him. And one of the pictures a first grader took ended up in our yearbook as his picture, because that was the photograph we had, and it was pretty darn good. He, however, is shockingly photogenic. It's really quite unfair. So having a photographer of the day, and then what I would do is each month, I would dump them into a Flickr photo set and put it on our website so that they could go through all the. I did have to pull out any that had kids' name, they'll take pictures in their book box, they'll have a name on it, and I'll have to take that out for our district rules. And I am vain enough to have taken out anything really horrifyingly unflattering of me. I will leave in some, but I draw a line at some point. But it was fun to have their pictures and to see the day through their eyes. It was really eye-opening for me. We do have a class website. It's just a WordPress blog, but it's a way to communicate with families. And they take pictures for it often. They would take photographs, they would decide what to put up. The initials are, that's the kid that wrote that blog post. So these are actually drawings they did. You can see the table behind it. But they wanted their drawings to go up on our website, and so they took pictures of the drawings. We had chicks visit our classroom one day. My children had chicks for about 2 months, and the chicks came in one day, and it was hugely exciting. I teach in the suburbs outside of DC, but as I say, Title I, it's much more urban than it is suburban. So animals are really unusual and exciting. When we go to the tidal basin and take a walk around, we're excited about the monuments, they're excited about the ducks. I have to step back and think, right, of course they are. That's okay. We take our cameras on field trips. So this was a field trip to a nature center and some of the pictures that they took. And again, this little girl wrote about our field trip. When it was the day of the field trip to Hidden Oaks, it was fun. We were in the classroom at Hidden Oaks. We saw a lizard and a snake and a turtle. And then we went on our nature walk. We saw a lot of bugs. There's some great writing happening when they do this because they're not trying to do the physical act of writing, which they do at other times, but this is a great chance for them to really craft their writing and think about their audience and what they're trying to say. And so the technology is offering them that option in a way that physically writing, they would write, it was fun. We saw bugs. I also tend to use Google Translate, and I put our website into Spanish now. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to get the point across, and I've got families who then know what's happening in our classroom in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. I had one parent tell me that her father in Bolivia reads the website to know about his granddaughter. I was like, dude, now I will put forth this effort. Like, I'm not going to whine about it because there's a grandfather in Bolivia reading this. And then we take pictures for content area. Groups of 10. One of the things I did in first grade almost every year was make a movie for the 100th day of school. I don't think we ever finished it in time for the 100th day of school, though that was always a goal. But they would take all the numbers from 1 to 100, and they would use whatever tools they wanted to in our classroom, and they would take a picture of 1 thing, 2 things, 12 things, 85 things. And they would put them in groups of 10. And then we would dump it into a movie. And when we were really good, we would record the numbers in English and Spanish from 1 to 100 and have a really cool movie of all of their arrays, of all of their groups of 10. And it was a really great way to get first graders thinking about groups of 10. We did the first few ourselves, and then it became a workstation, and they did it by themselves. There was a camera ready. They knew where all the math tools were. Sometimes they'd go get crayons or whatever they wanted. As long as they put it back, I was okay with it. So they took all these pictures. And then, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. They would have a workstation where they walked around the school and looked for the shapes we were studying. Circles. Circles have no sides. Circles, triangles, rectangles, squares. It is hard to find triangles. They are not a whole lot of trying. If you look around and try to find an actual genuine triangle. And then we would bring them back, and if they took too many, we would pick and choose which pictures we wanted. Rectangles, usually we had to make some choices about which rectangles we wanted. And we would sort them. So it's really fun to dump them into Movie Maker or Photo Story and drag the pictures back and forth. Where does that go? Oh, that's a square, it goes with the squares. That's a triangle, it goes with the triangles. And we would sort them together. And then we would record what we know about circles, triangles, squares, rectangles. It's not as exciting to watch as it is to make, but it is fun to make. And then we would use pictures to write about things. So they like to draw, and that works great for their writing most of the time, but every once in a while, they would really like to use the photographs they've taken from their cameras and write about them. So this is from a field trip to the Smithsonian. We were supposed to go to the tidal basin. We go to the tidal basin every year. We walk all the way around the tidal basin. It's really fun. But the tidal basin flooded last spring. Literally water up to the steps of the Jefferson Memorial, which was not what we wanted to navigate with 6-year-olds. So we ended up at the very last minute going to the Smithsonian American History Museum instead. And we talked about past and present. Past and present is a big part of first grade curriculum. We thought, great, last minute, here we go. We'll try to come up with a content area focus. So this child wrote, this picture is the past when the people were surfing to watch TV without the remote control. Because, wow, no remote control? That's really shocking. Do you realize how the things that were in my childhood that are in the Smithsonian, my kids feel as really, really old? looking at toys, I'm like, I had that when I was your age. They're like, wow. Yes, the divide is so great. And then sometimes their focus gets a little off topic. When I saw the bike, I was saying in my head, why don't I have one and my brother does have one? All right? So, if nothing else, we are thinking about what we're seeing and we're writing about it. So, moving on from cameras, Pixie is one of my favorite tools. How many of you have Pixie available to you in your buildings? All right, Pixie costs money, so if you don't have it available to you, I'm going to feel really terrible about the fact that I'm so passionate about Pixie. There is a web-based version of Pixie that is called Wixie, literally exactly the same, just starts with a W, that costs, I think, $5 per subscription. So I have a friend in Arlington County where they do not have Pixie, or if they do, she's chosen to do Wixie anyway, and she buys 20 subscriptions for $100 and has her kids use them each year. And when you move on from her class, you lose your subscription because it's going to the next kid because she's not buying new ones. But Wixie allows them to use it from any computer from home. She and I just planned an entire conference presentation for NCTE and VSTE together on Wixie. Not, I think, the way most people plan their conference presentations. We used Google Drive too, but Wixie was really the fun part of it. So Pixie allows you to draw, it allows you to type, it allows you to record, it allows you to put in photographs. The pictures that you just saw them writing about, that was done in Pixie. So they inserted the photograph and then they typed about it. It also doesn't spell check for you. When I've had kids work in Word, I've had them type things in Word and I thought, great, I'll see if they remember to use a period at the end. Or a capital letter after a period. Yeah, Word does that for you. I now no longer know if they're doing it or not. In Pixie, I do. Oh, this child does remember to use a period. But this child doesn't know that remote control is 2 words. All right.
It does have a spell check, though.
It does have a spell check if you choose, yes. It doesn't automatically spell check for
Right.
you the way that Word does. It does have that option for you. First graders don't spell check well either. So the first thing that we do in Pixie every year just to get good at it is we create an avatar. And this is a bunch of our avatars. That gives them the chance just to explore it, play around with it, find out what's in Pixie. Pixie is very user-friendly for young children. I don't teach them anything about Pixie, except occasionally how to save. Somehow, the digital native myth does not work when you realize that they have no idea how to save what they've done. And they'll close it and you'll go, did you save it? What? Great, there it went. So they create an avatar. And we can use those avatars for things, but mostly it just gives us a chance to explore with Pixie. This is one of my favorite avatars. I love that this child not only used stickers and drawing, but integrated them in such a cool way. That was a first grader in the first 2 weeks of school. And then we use it for lots of content area stuff. We talked about in a study of animals and different parts of animals. I let them choose whatever animal they wanted and label parts of it. Somehow it hadn't even crossed my mind that they would choose dinosaurs. And you can see the second language learner here, foots. Sure, his foots. It goes with wings and head that's spelled had. This kid added, he eat fish. That was something he just felt he wanted to put in there. This one wanted to put in multiple animals, but just label one. And the drawing lines to the labels is a bit of a stretch to find the ears, nose, and legs. But I get the idea. Tail, fin, gills, eyes, spelled I-C, teeth, yes. And we use it a lot at different holidays. So at Thanksgiving, we use Pixie to talk about what we're thankful for. You are primary people. You could probably read it. It says, I am thankful for my cousin. Good for her. I find it fascinating to learn what young children are thankful for. I think I have a stereotype in my head that they're all going to tell me they're thankful for their video games, and yet often what I see are, I'm thankful for my cousin, or a family member, or something really special to them. It's often much deeper than I expect it to be, and it's really exciting. At New Year's, we write New Year's resolutions. This New Year's resolution was about books. They record their resolution. In the beginning of the year, we're a responsive classroom school. We do our hopes and dreams, so we kind of set these goals, talking about our hopes and dreams at the beginning of the year. And I use New Year's as a chance to come back and think about them again. But instead of drawing them on our little clouds that are already hanging up, we do them in Pixie, which allows us to share them with families really easily. And it's fun for families to see what their 6-year-old wants as a New Year's resolution. We make alphabet books. This is something in kindergarten that's a fabulous thing to be doing because beginning sounds is a real challenge for my little 5-year-olds. So you've got a letter. The first time we do it, ideally, I try to actually make it the first letter of their first name. That is not working this year. I only have 4 kids out of 18 who do not share a first letter with someone else in the room. I don't have any idea how that happened. But, so maybe the first letter of your last name. I try to give them something to hang on to the first time we do it so that they have some confidence level. Because searching for pictures in Pixie is hard when you can't spell. There is a search function to search for stickers. And I love watching kindergartners and first graders search because their spelling is so, they can't find anything. They have no idea how to spell the word. They're looking for rainbow. And they're getting the sounds, and if they were writing it in a book for me, I'd be thrilled. But it is not going to help them with a search function. So I will help them with spelling there. But so I want them to have a place to start as they get to really explore the stickers and find the letters that they're looking for. But I'm amazed at how many things they can find. Snakes, spiders, scorpions, sun, square, slug. Oftentimes they'll just open up a first folder that they like in Pixie, so they'll look at animals, and they'll try to find animals that start with S. I'm also impressed because it's showing me how much vocabulary they have. For some of my kids that are second language learners, I don't expect them to know scorpion and slug. So that's kind of cool to see them put those in there. At Halloween, a lot of my kids, fewer at my new school, but we always have kids who don't celebrate Halloween. Their families view it as a pagan holiday. Not inaccurately, but, and they don't do it. And it's fun. Halloween is fun with little kids. So we take it as book character day at our school, as many schools have taken. You can dress up as your favorite book character. And at this point, it doesn't really matter who you dress up as. There's some book that you can justify. You want to come as Elsa or Anna from Frozen, there's 18 books out there about that movie. You want to come as Spider-Man or Superman, there's books out there. So really you can justify pretty much anything on book character day. But we take Pixie to create ourselves as the book characters we really want to be. So whatever our Halloween costume is great, but really I want to be Pete the Cat, and I don't know how to dress up as Pete the Cat. So here I'm going to make myself Pete the Cat, or Froggy, or Gerald or Piggy, or the Pigeon, or whichever book character is your favorite. Turtle art. Have any of you heard of turtle art? Sylvia's back there. She knows turtle art. Turtle art, I can't do turtle art justice, and I'm sad about that. Turtle art is a logo-based, Sylvia, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, right? It's a logo-based program to create art. It's a drag and drop like Scratch. So all these different possibilities that you can drag to make the little turtle move. If you knew logo back in the 80s, which not all of you are old enough for, there was a little turtle. Yes. I had a computer programmer father, so I knew some of this. So there's this little turtle, and you can make the turtle do things on the screen in turtle art. And when you make the turtle do things, you can have him leave a trail behind him, or her. I don't know why I'm making it gender. The little turtle can leave a trail. So you can change the color of your trail, you can change how far the trail goes, you can make the turtle turn, you can make the turtle not leave a trail if you want a blank space between your lines. But it's all drag and drop. So you pull forward, and then you put in a number. The default is 100. I love, with little kids, just having them play around with that number because they're getting some sense. Kids love to put in the biggest number they can with as many zeros as possible, and the turtle goes right off the side of the screen. And they're like, what happened? We can have a great conversation about number sense when they make their turtle walk right off the screen. It's amazing. You can make it turn, and it turns by degrees.
It's like coding.
It is. It turns, turn right, 90 means it's going to make a 90-degree turn. First graders and kindergartners don't know 90. They don't have any idea of degrees. It hasn't slowed them down. When I learned about turtle art, I was told, third grade on up. And I thought, but I don't teach third grade on up, and I love turtle art because this is really fun. We're going to try it. So basically, I installed it on the computers in our computer lab, and I took my first graders in, and I showed them a teeny tiny bit, which is really about all I knew at that point, and said, go for it. And they started figuring out things. And I would watch them look at each other and go, how did you do that? And I'd watch them get up and run across the room to each other. And my only rule was, talk to each other all you want, but don't touch each other's computer. And my rule was don't touch each other's computer because it's really easy to walk over to your friend's computer and go, I did this, and drag it and fix it, and your friend has no idea how to do it. So you can go over and tell your friend how to do it, but your friend has to move the mouse. Your friend has to be the one figuring out then how turtle art works. So turtleart.org is the website for it. It's free, you just have to email them. The creators of turtle art are happy to share it with anyone. They will email you an installation. They're just trying to kind of keep track of who's using it and where as they learn about it. As it develops and grows. And I've been using it for about 5 years now.
Do you know if it works both on PCs and Macs?
All right, Sylvia, PCs and Macs? Yes, I thought so. It has to, because I use it on a PC, and I'm sure that most people that are using it are more Mac people. I always feel a little bit out of the loop amongst really serious computer people when I have my PC. But turtle art is fun, and you can have some really great mathematical conversations. I always have kids figure out how to do this, which is just make your turtle walk in a square, and then at the end of the square, turn 5 degrees, and walk in another square, and just repeat that. One of the directions is to repeat. So you set it up to create the square with a 5-degree off at the end, and it just keeps square after square after square to make this spiral. And you can rainbow the colors, and it looks really cool. You can slow it down so you can watch the turtle more slowly, or you can make it basically instantaneous where it goes, and you have a spiral.
Can I ask you about how long you spend on it? Like, would it be done in 30 minutes or?
Usually when I took my kids to the computer lab, we had an hour once a week. So I would have no trouble taking them in for half an hour and throwing it at them, as long as we could do it multiple times. I also tend to put it on my classroom computer so that it's there available at other points during the day.
And they can save.
It is something they can save, yes.
And go back to it.
Yes, yes. But truly, out of everything, turtle art is the one that I would just sit and play with. You'll see it's on the desktop of my computer because it's just fun. The developers of turtle art were at CMK several years ago, and every t-shirt they wore each day was a different turtle art design. They were amazing. These unbelievably intricate designs, and they've done them in turtle art. I'm never, ever going to be able to do that.
Can you print them?
Yes. Another one okay, so turtle art is free. Animation-ish is not. How many of you know Peter H. Reynolds? The Dot-ish?
Yeah.
Okay, that is not enough hands. You need to read The Dot-ish, North Star, if you don't know Peter Reynolds. But Peter Reynolds and his twin brother Paul They are Peter and Paul, and they look very much the same, enough that when I first met them, I called Paul Peter, and he was very nice about it. But they have a company called Fablevision, and it has a wing division called Fablevision Learning with lots of different software. My favorite is Animationish. Animationish is an animation program, but it's a really, really user-friendly animation program. We've used it for a wide variety of things. Sometimes me sitting at the computer directing it, sometimes the kids doing it. I love to put it on the smartboard and let them practice their high-frequency words. Because how boring is it to keep writing or make, break, fix the same high-frequency words, or even new high-frequency words, but keep doing it the same way. In Animationish, you write it, decorate it however you want, go to the next screen, you write it again, decorate it, go to the next screen, write it again. And then what it does is it animates that. It plays through those different pictures. I'll show you. Which makes it a really fun way to just keep going with your high-frequency words when really they're pretty dull. And I don't even bother to save them. And I don't care if you're I just want you to be writing it, and so if this is a fun way to write it, then great. I tried saving them at first, and then I realized that was a huge waste of energy. This is how we've used it in content areas to show cycles. So the life cycle of a frog, what you saw there was the egg. We went to tadpole. And this is a season's life cycle that we are slowly creating this year in kindergarten. So you'll see summer. And the kids, this is me drawing, the kids telling me what to draw. Fall. I don't think we've done winter yet. Yeah, so that's as far as we've done so far. But when you go to add a new page, get to the end, you can see the shadow of what you've drawn before. So if you want to recreate it pretty close, it makes for a very small change in your animation. And then I'm going to make it as slow as possible so you can kind of see it. And you can loop in Animationish, so it'll just keep going. So if you have a cycle, that's really cool. Our cycle is currently going to go summer, fall, summer, fall, summer, fall, which is kind of how I would like things to go, but not how they do in reality. So it just cycles through your pictures, and it's really easy to use. It's very, so my kids, here's your paintbrush, different colors. You can change the size of your brush. So if I'm writing my high frequency word, it's much better on the smartboard. I'm not good at it with. And then you just add a new page. I can change the color. Maybe I didn't change the color. I can't remember what color I used before.
Is this one free?
This one is not free. But it's not hugely expensive if you want it just on your computer or. So my little AM dances. Again, it's not huge, but it's fun. And it is kind of huge when we do it for cycles in science, but it's also just fun for. I don't know if there's an app for iPads. That's a really good question. I have no idea if Fablevision has anything for iPads, but that would definitely be worth checking out.
You love Pixie. Have you ever used Frames?
I've played around with Frames personally. I've never used it with my classes. It has seemed more complicated than I've been willing to tackle in the primary grades.
You can do Pixie. You can do Frames.
Really?
I use Frames a lot, and you get that whole kind of feel.
That same kind of animation
so
feel.
And you can actually animate parts of what you write. So like if you made a smile, you can make the smile a little bigger, and just you're duplicating.
Right, in a similar.
Right.
Nice. Yeah, I will say that pretty much anything that Fablevision Learning or that Tech for Learning, which is who does Pixie and Frames, I'm pretty much going to want anything they put out there. Scott Loomis is here from Tech for Learning, so if you're interested in Pixie or Wixie or Frames or Share
I'm
or
doing the session today.
or any of those, it's totally worth talking to him. I firmly believe in their products, and most of the time I want things that are free.
And they do have an app, and it's really good.
Which does?
Pixie.
Pixie. That's an app for Pixie? That's different than Wixie?
Yeah, they have an app, and it's wonderful. No, if you can do it with volume purchasing, it's $9.95, and you can do the volume purchasing for
Right.
that price.
Okay.
But it's worth it. It's really good.
That's good to know, because yeah, I haven't checked
And
out the
it's so
apps.
easy with kindergartners, it's just, they take it.
Kindergartners are sharp. They really, really are. So, VoiceThread is something that's free. Although I actually pay for VoiceThread, and I'll explain that in a second. But first, let me just back up and say, for 10 years, I taught 4th and 5th graders, and that's where I first started really doing stuff with technology. And my kids in the upper grades blogged and used wikis to track our learning. In 5th grade in Fairfax County, you have this Global Awareness Technology Project that you come back at the end of the year and you bring back all your learning from the whole year. We used wikis to kind of track our learning throughout the year, so that when we were coming back in this big project, we could just go back to our wikis rather than trying to remember it all individually. But I loved using blogs and wikis. There was so much I felt like we were able to do as thinkers and learners together, and as continuing our learning outside of our classroom time. And I thought, when I moved to First, wow, what am I going to do? They can't use blogs and wikis. They're not reading and writing at a level to make that meaningful for us yet. I know primary classrooms that are blogging, and there's some really great stuff happening. It's not the kind of thing I was looking for. There's a reason for that blogging, but it wasn't going to gain me what I had in 4th and 5th grade. What I wanted was places where my students could interact with each other, could document their learning, could respond to each other's learning. I wanted places where asynchronously they could continue conversations about things. But blog in a 1st grade hands isn't going to do that in the way I wanted it to. So I was really excited to discover VoiceThread. How many of you have played around with VoiceThread or used it in your classroom? VoiceThread was designed originally by the guys who created it to be a competitor to things like Flickr and to photo sharing sites. And then teachers got on there, and teachers just latched on to the possibilities in VoiceThread. My husband's a college professor. He has colleagues who use VoiceThread with their college students. So there's possibilities for VoiceThread from education, from preschool through higher ed. VoiceThread wisely noticed teachers doing that and started targeting that audience and supporting that audience. And it's been a powerful tool. For those of you not familiar with VoiceThread, as I say, it was originally designed as a photo sharing site. So you put photos into a VoiceThread, and then you can record about them. So what this allowed me, with my little emerging readers and writers, was a place where they could share their thinking and then see each other's thinking, hear each other's thinking. Because they couldn't read it, this was a way to have those kinds of ongoing conversations. So we've used VoiceThread for a plethora of things. And you'll see there's their avatars they created in Pixie at the beginning. So we use those in VoiceThread. But we've used it, this was at Thanksgiving, we often make butter. If you've never made butter with young children, it's pretty amazing. Take heavy whipping cream and put it in a jar and shake it for a really long time. We pass it around and count by 10s and count by 5s and count backwards and practice lots of math counting while we're shaking our heavy whipping cream. But if you shake it long enough, it genuinely becomes really sweet butter. And then we spread it on really cheap bread and we eat the butter that we made, which is pretty cool when you're 6. But I took pictures through each of the steps. Here we are pouring the heavy whipping cream into the jar. And then they recorded what was happening during those steps, so they're retelling the activity that we did. Sometimes they're adding a little bit of commentary about how they really liked the butter or really didn't like the butter, or about how silly they felt shaking the jar, whatever it may be.
Makes for great story writing.
It makes for great story writing, fabulous story writing. We've used it in math, where I've just dumped in pictures of whatever it is we're studying, and they record. So that one's shapes, which is not immensely interesting. I've also dumped in equations. So it might say 2 + 5 equals, and they'll record a number story. I had 2 marbles, and my friend gave me 5 more marbles, so now I have 7 marbles. So they're recording number stories and listening to each other's number stories. I have a friend who has them record the poems that they're reading that week, so that they're listening to their oral reading of the poem. This one is their own writing, so I just put in pictures of them during writing time. The pictures don't really have anything to do with it's about writing, but it's not. They just took their own piece of writing. I'm sure you have conferenced with young children, and honestly, even in the upper grades, and they come to you and they read to you what you wrote, and then they go, oh wait, that's not what I meant, or oh wait, I forgot a word, or well, hey, you read it before you came to me. We've talked about this. I've got little PVC pipe headphones you can read it into. how is this not happening? But it doesn't happen, or they don't notice it, or something. So recording it into VoiceThread was a great way for them to feel motivated and excited about reading it and catch those kinds of things themselves before they come to me. Because really what I would like is for them to be independent with those kinds of skills. I don't want them to always be coming to me to be able to do this stuff. So the more they start to realize they can do it by themselves, the better. They can also then listen to each other's writing, which is kind of fun that they can share. We've used it for storytelling. One of the greatest challenges for me in a primary classroom is that young children can tell awesome stories, but they can't write them yet. There's such a divide between all that's happening in their head and what they have the physical and mental and intellectual ability to put on paper. And so we always start the year off storytelling, and they'll talk to me or they'll talk to a buddy and they'll tell these great stories, and then they'll tell them 3 times so it's really set in their head, and then they'll go get their little book of paper and they'll write 2 sentences. And I always am pained by it, and yet I recognize that that's a laborious process for them to write those 2 sentences. And I want them to do that, but I also don't want to lose the craft. They're crafting great stories in their storytelling, and I'm sad that I feel like it's getting lost in translation. So we started recording them into VoiceThread. Here's a chance to go practice telling your story again. Your friends can listen to your story. Then we started doing it into Pixie. So open up Pixie and record your story, and then you can illustrate it. You can even divide it onto multiple pages in Pixie and illustrate each of the different pages just like you would on a book, and we can save it as a movie. We can put it up on our class blog, and your mom and dad can watch your book that you just created. It's like a book in Tumblebooks. It doesn't have the words on the page, but it's like a book in Tumblebooks in their eyes, which is good enough for me. So the ability to record is a huge piece of why technology, to me, is a tool I want to use in a primary classroom. Because a lot of the things that technology can do for my kids, I'd rather they do with blocks or Legos or crayons or physical tools that they're manipulating and interacting with. But the ability to take photographs, the ability to use those photographs to tell stories, the ability to take all the amazing stuff that's in their head that they can't put on paper and put it out here to share with each other or with the wider world is when technology becomes the tool I want to use in my classroom. I don't need to be a one-to-one classroom personally in kindergarten because I don't want them on the computers that often. I would like to have a computer for every 3 or 4 kids so that when they're ready to tell a story, they have access to it. So this group of kids may be telling stories on the computer. This group of kids may be writing their stories still. This group of kids may be reading right now. Whatever it may be, I want them to have access to it to grab the computer or the iPad or whatever in the same way that I want them to grab the Legos or the crayons or the scissors or the bears or whatever other tool it is that they need for their learning right then. But I want to know that I've set it up so that they're really being thoughtful about why they're grabbing that tool. That it is the right tool for the job they're doing and the learning they're doing right then. I think that's all. Oh, there's our own writing. So just one last time. My email address, that's a J. I have issues with Comic Sans. I really, really don't like Comic Sans. It pains me to look at. I use a font called TWCentMT in Word because it does the A the right way and it does the G the right way. It does not, however, do the J the right way. So typically when I'm doing something with the students, I change the J's to another little font. But I figured you guys could handle it. So, jenor@gmail.com. The website is just jenor.com, which makes it really easy. And there's a page there that is Meaningful Technology for Young Learners that has links to everything. And I will try to add the Library of Virginia link for Tumblebooks as well. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them, chat. If you have any suggestions, things you use in your classroom that I didn't mention, I would really like to hear those. Thank you so much.